All right. Hello, everybody, and hello on YouTube. We are Starship Tempest. Well, we are a fraction of Starship Tempest. We are 3/5.
We're the most important part of Starship Tempest.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. Thank you for coming and for watching our Q&A here at Starbase Indy in Indianapolis. We're really glad to be here. Ryan, you can go ahead and start.
Oh, okay. So
no, your name.
Oh,
who you are.
introductions, right.
Yeah.
I've only done 2 of these before.
I know.
My name is Ryan Sheely. I am the lead sound designer for Starship Tempest, and I am also the captain of the USS Tempest and NCC 10535. And I'll pass it on to my beloved.
Aw, well.
Well, I am. And I am the chief engineer, Nicholas Holden, on the show.
Going.
That's right. I'm gonna go. We're finished.
On it.
That was great. Also, I'm his wife, Tara Sheely. I play Dr. Teal and Lieutenant Eel, and she's not Ensign Doe anymore. She's Lieutenant Doe.
Lieutenant Junior Grade.
Yeah, Lieutenant Doe. And a number of other people. And it is a blast. I'm also our social media person, which is why we're live on YouTube. Live is wrong. We are on YouTube.
We are recording for YouTube later.
This is why I'm not the tech person. And we are here doing things like this because I tend to ask. Can we do a panel there? Oh, okay, great. Thanks. We'll be there. So, today is about, unless we want to talk about the show for a second first.
Sure, I can
give a rundown.
It up a little bit. All right, so Starship Tempest is an actual play podcast, and it is a bit of a unique sort of actual play in that we try to blur the line between actual play and audio drama. So it's probably 80-20 actual play to audio drama, maybe even a higher ratio, but bottom line is we have a lot of real, in-the-moment, active storytelling that happens improv in the form of live actual play. And then also we take moments that are developed from the show and design them in post-production. So we'll create scenes, we'll add in sound effects, we'll put in music and everything to try to give it that little extra bit of spice to make it feel a little bit more true to what the original form of Star Trek is.
Awesome.
And
all right, no more flying tribbles. That's a normal sentence at a convention, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Also, what we are using is a game by Modifius called Star Trek Adventures. And for those here this morning, we wanted to talk about, or here watching later, we wanted to talk about the game itself. We brought Ensign Baby for those who listen to the show.
It's just like the show.
He's 4 now, so that's the whole thing. Anyway, so I brought this amazing book that Travis made for us. Mm-hmm. So when we started playing Star Trek Adventures, a lot of us were very, very green to playing TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games, for those who don't know the acronym. We didn't know what we were doing, and we went online and we made our character sheets, which I also brought some examples of these, if anybody would like one before you go.
So up here at the front.
Yeah, so this is like a rundown of how you decide what your character is going to be like, and what their attributes and disciplines might be, what their focuses might be, what they might be better at. So like, I play 2 characters in different, like I kind of have 2 main characters. The doctor obviously is going to be better at medicine and not great at engineering, but the engineer that I play, the teleporter wizard, chief engineer, is great at engineering.
Sorry, did you just promote Eel to my job?
Oh, sorry. No, not chief. Did I say chief engineer?
No, Ryan did.
Oh, chief engineer.
Did I say chief engineer?
Yeah.
Oh, you said
transporter chief.
Transporter
None of us
chief.
is right.
There's a chief in there.
And nobody's right except for Travis.
I'm apparently fired.
He knows a lot about engineering, nothing about medicine, as he says in the first season, but I won't say that in front of the children, the way that he said that. So we brought these sheets to give you some examples of how to design your character, which if you've ever played D&D, you're familiar with, because designing your character is a big part of how you play. But I wanted Travis to talk about this amazing book that he made for us. I'm not like here to hawk this book. It's just like a home brewed, like, I don't know, I don't want to use the word Bible, but it's like a resource. That's the word that Travis came up with. Go ahead.
Okay. Was not prepared for this.
Oh,
Alright.
sorry.
It's okay.
Throwing it at you.
So if anybody has looked at the Star Trek Adventures, the book itself is quite thick and it's very dense. This particular game system is pretty crunchy. There's a lot of sort of moving parts and things that you got to follow.
Yeah.
Since we were all very new, they had never played any role-playing game before, and I had played one or two very simplistic ones. We were not quite prepared to take on the complexity of Star Trek Adventures. So we whittled things down as we were playing. And after, what was it, like 2 seasons of us playing, we were like, okay, what have we done thus far? Like, what are the things that we have been doing on a session-to-session basis? And all I did was whittle down, looking at just those actions, like, here is all of the typical tasks that we play. And there's, maybe 10 on one page. It's performing a scan, doing a tricorder scan, doing a transporter task. Dr. Teal is a Beta Z, and so doing a sort of telepathy role type of thing. And we found when we actually, after we played a few times, it's always good to play a couple times just to get a sense of it before you try and run a full campaign of your own type of thing. This boiled down to 6 pages of actions, sort of condensed, and it made it way easier for us to just go, these are the things we're gonna do, and we're gonna kind of ignore the pieces that we have trouble with or that will make it get in the way because we're just not super good at navigating it at this point.
Totally. And even that front page that you did, it's the front page is like a page of reminders for us because we would get so bogged down in certain things that we thought for me in particular, I was always worried that I'm not gonna get the technobabble right. I'm not gonna get the jargon right. I'm gonna mess this up because I'm not as well versed as the others in the ship lore or something. I'm gonna screw this up. And so Travis's first page is role play over gameplay and trust Brian will fix it in post and things, notes
Brian's
like that.
Our GM.
Brian's our game master. We should also have said Brian Fidifter is our game master and he writes all of our scenarios and works very hard to put the show together. And then Matt Muller is our other cast member who is he did our website, which looks great now. He is also the XO and Chief Science Officer. See the jargon, right? I freak out about the jargon.
The other thing that's worth doing, there's a lot of online character builders for Star Trek Adventures that are really great that walk you through sort of where did your character grow up? What were they in Starfleet? What are the things that they've gone through? And it assigns you things like talents and focuses and stuff like that. But talents are sort of buried in the book, and so it's always good to just make up a character sheet where you write out all your talents and focuses and values and whatnot. And they may change, and you may have to update it every now and again. But it's good to just have them there because we played a dozen games before we remembered that we even had talents.
Right.
And talents are very powerful, and it's one of those things where it's oh, I have a talent that can be used as many times as I feel like, and it's super powerful. So it's good to just have stuff in front of you at the time for people who have not played these before. I know that there's a bit of a nerd stigma in the sense of having a whole folder sitting in front of you before you sit down to play one of these games, but it really does it lets you get immersed much more quickly.
Totally.
It also streamlines the whole event because we would take so many large stoppages in play just to figure out a rule. So in terms of the flow of the game, it really helped us streamline that so that we would be more in character for more of the time. We didn't have to spend as much time looking up random rules because Travis had gave us the shortcut there.
Totally. And also, we would, as you listen to the show, StarshipTempest.com, as you listen to the show, you listen to us learning more and more. And so, someone asked me a question just earlier this week about, it seems like in the first season you guys maybe succeed a whole lot more. And we're we didn't know we were playing one aspect a little bit wrong. And so we just recorded season 4, even though we're releasing season 3 right now.
Halfway through season 3.
So recording season 4, I'm oh yeah, that doesn't happen as much. Don't you worry about that. So there's an evolution too of us learning the game. So it's we don't know all the things we need to know in season 1, but it's kind of fun to go on that ride to hear how it gets.
And I imagine we'll continue to that will continue to play out because the Star Trek Adventures rulebook is very thick and very complicated. And the better we get at our own homebrew type of rule sets, I imagine we can branch out and sort of really adhere to the actual rule sets maybe a little bit more going forward. We'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And and that's the thing is, Ryan, you mentioned earlier that it's like 80-20 actual play to audio drama, and I think that might have been true early on, but as we played this, and again, with any of these systems, with any of these games, the more you play, it becomes second nature just because you are getting used to it, and then it allows you to do the more fun aspects of I don't particularly love the role playing myself, but the more fun aspects of like the adventure that you're on as opposed to, or being the character that you have made up and everything like that. And that allows you to sort of dive in. So like we may start at 90-10, 80-20, but now we're in season 3, I would say that we are easily half and half. We've had an entire, so I'll say we do a full mission, and we usually release that mission in chunks. So each episode is generally, 45 minutes to an hour?
That's the goal.
Around there. And then usually a mission takes place over 2 to 3 episodes, is sort of depending on how long the mission runs. We've had entire episodes where we didn't roll a single dice, where it was all role playing. That didn't happen until season 3, I think, was the first time it happened. But at that point, we know the rules well enough that we know whether or not our character can do something or whether it's something we need to roll. And our GM at that point was confident enough that he was like, okay, well, I don't necessarily need to make you roll here because we can talk our way through it. It still doesn't happen often, but it's one of those things where we're rolling less. But even when we do roll, we like the fact that rolling adds a little bit of randomness to the story, right?
Yeah.
For sure. It's also, go ahead.
But yeah, it just allows us to get into character more. There's a lot more we have those scenes, whereas early on we were like, okay, Holden comes in and does this. And then, okay, well that happens. Okay, well then Maddox comes in and does this.
We were talking in the third person.
Yeah,
right.
and now it doesn't happen nearly as often. And I think we've transitioned to adding more every year. We add more sound effects and more music. Now we have music in there, which we didn't have the first season.
Yeah, the post-production we try to get a little bit better every single time. But I do think that, to your point, that one mission where we didn't roll a single task for the first hour, for the first episode of that mission, that was the first time where I genuinely got lost in the character, in a good way, where I was no longer Ryan, I was Captain Maddox, and I was in that moment interacting in that situation and making decisions based upon
and being
choices,
so frustrated with us.
choices that actually Ryan, I decided in that moment, at the beginning of that mission, I decided I'm going to play this the exact opposite of how Ryan would.
Right.
And in doing that and cutting that tie, that's how I was able to slip into just losing myself as Captain Maddox. And it was one of those moments like, oh, this is why people really like to roll for
Right.
I get it now. Okay.
I'm one of those people that I get really in my head when it's just it sounds like me, it's a character too close to me, so I doubt myself a lot. But
that's where the accents come from.
Yes, that's where the accents come in. So it's kind of, my therapist calls it dissociating. But I started doing Lieutenant Eel with this, sloppy British accent that everyone loved, and it was, just supposed to be this fun, one-off character. But I found that I was saying things and making decisions without thinking so hard because I took myself out of it. So then later, we'd finish recording. Ryan and I would record. We still record in different rooms so we don't mess up each other's audio. And so we'd get back together in the living room afterward or whatever, and he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, when you said this is Eel, it was so funny." I was like, "Honey, I don't know what I said. I wasn't actually there. I just Eel does that whole thing." But yeah, it's a lot of embracing your character, right? And just they're gonna say what they're gonna say, and hope that it plays out really well, and then typically does because we love this sandbox we're playing in.
Yeah, it's true.
We have some questions. I have no idea what time it is.
10:15.
Okay. We have some questions from our wonderful patrons and in the audience here. Go ahead. You get precedence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because we were talking so much about character, what are some lessons that your characters or things that maybe in terms of like growth for yourself, like if you playing a more extroverted character, sometimes you feel yourself being more extroverted.
Yeah.
That's a really, really awesome question. Can I go?
Go, yeah.
I think Captain Maddox, when I painted this character, it was sort of like an idealized version of myself. When I put pen to page to try to figure out who this character was going to be, I basically made him me, but like a way better version of me than I could ever be. And so one of his values is, you can't. Now that I'm on the spot, I
Yeah,
can't
right.
picture it.
Where's your book? Yeah, I brought my book.
Oh.
Am I in there?
Well, it does have
Oh,
everybody's.
failure is a prerequisite to success.
That's the one. Yeah.
I have long been a very stubborn individual. I have long hated to be wrong, and I try to get myself, I'm trying to become a better person, improve myself.
Can confirm.
Captain Maddox is that person. He's that better version of me who understands that the only way that we ever get anything right in this universe is by getting it wrong first. And every time you get it wrong is an opportunity to get better. Right, boys? Our kids are in the front row.
Yeah.
So anyway,
True, you did tell us.
so it's that question that you just asked is really personal to me, because I really do think that I've walked away from certain episodes, certain moments where I've been like, man, Captain Maddox is a good dude. I should be more like him.
Captain Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So with Dr. Teal, I had a lot of struggle with like embracing that character as myself, and like what would I be like as a doctor, and like I couldn't wrap my head around the role-playing game aspect. But the more we played, the more things that she was doing within the show were like, oh, that's a thing that I like to do too. Like that's like we are. So one of my values, because I like to make Brian's life more difficult, so I couldn't just like have a.
As every player does.
As every player does, I couldn't just have it like be a plain and simple articulate value. No, my value is if there's a puzzle, I'll solve it, and it's because I really loved the mystery aspect of any of our episodes. Like, why did this happen though? And can I go and examine the body in the morgue? Like, can I do things that maybe we wouldn't have done otherwise because I was surrounded by engineers, but I'm the one that's the humanity person. I'm the one that wants to take care of people. I'm the one that wants to like fix what's wrong with the people, not just the ship or the mission. And so a lot of my like puzzle solving would lead us to like actually answer the thing. And Brian was like, I couldn't believe it when you said you wanted to go in the morgue. That's exactly what you needed to do. Like, so he and I would geek out about me being Jessica Fletcher of our show. That's true. But it's also a thing that I enjoy. I love puzzle solving and mysteries and things like that. So like, that's one of the things about my character that I was like, oh, that's a cool thing we have in common and that I can celebrate in me and in her. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have one for Holden?
For Holden? I don't know.
Because I have another one for Eel
For Eel?
Yeah.
Go for
Oh.
Eel. Go for Eel.
Well, in one of our more recent episodes or missions, Eel has taken to the phrase "the next right thing," and I just think that's a wonderful philosophy. Like, if you don't know what to do the next right thing.
Do the next right thing.
And then I just think that's a really awesome philosophy to execute in the real world.
Yeah, I will say.
From Frozen.
I know that's probably where I got it because I have 3 small children. But
So Frozen back and forth.
right. Also, like Eel was supposed to be such a silly, like whatever character that I could lean on sometimes, and Brian saw, because Brian is a director in the simplest sense, he is a director, and he saw in me that I was leaning on that character for a crutch. And so he started putting Eel in sort of trickier situations, or like pushing Eel to have to answer a serious question. And I was like, oh, Brian, I just wanted to be Eel when I was feeling stupid.
I just wanted to talk about pot roast.
I know, yeah, I just want to talk about pot roast on a spaceship. And he'd be like, no, what does Eel think about the Bajoran War? And I'm like, oh, Brian. So it was, in the end, it's great for him to have pushed me to do that. But also.
To be clear, transport ship eel is a Bajoran, but also is an actual eel.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, all of the characters outside of the main ones that we made animals.
Yeah.
Much to Brian's dismay
Yes.
and frustration.
And denial. Total denial.
And we kept pushing through the joke, and now it's stuck. And so now we have.
Lieutenant Doe
Which
is
also means
a deer.
If it ever gets put in into production, it will only have to be animated. Like it
Animated.
can't be any other way.
It would
Which
be
is
the
the best.
best
Yeah.
animated show.
We have a
of
kangaroo
animals.
in there. We
Yeah.
have-
Oh yeah, Rue.
Yeah.
Oh, Rue never skips leg day.
We have a hive. We have a hive of bees.
That's one of his values.
That's one of his never skips.
So I will do the one for Holden then.
Oh, sure.
So as Nick Holden, when we were coming up with these, I wanted to add a little bit of sort of like intrigue to our group. I had a sense of. I have a mic over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just so far away.
So we have a lot of very good people, and I was like, we should have someone that like stirs the pot a little bit here and there. So Nick Holden has a sort of Starfleet intelligence background, which in terms of what to learn. Me personally, I am one of those people who will over-prepare. Can you tell? So I'll do the thing where I will plan and prepare and set up and get ready and all those things over and over again until like I have it where I feel confident enough to like do the thing. And for Nick Holden, as someone who has an intelligence background, has done some shady stuff and will like, has been put behind enemy lines and done undercover stuff. There's a lot of situations where we have stuff going on where it's like, Nick Holden, no, I'm just gonna go do that thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes it goes like, yeah, danger is part of this, and I'm gonna put myself or someone else, in this case, in danger, and we'll figure it out as we go. And that's a thing that I normally wouldn't do, and like Nick Holden as a character would just do because he's like, we have to accomplish this goal, and rather than spending all of this time figuring out exactly how we're gonna get there, we need to just go towards that goal and get it done. And I think that's a thing that like I've taken away a little bit on it, which has been good.
The benefits of Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, some Leroy Jenkins there,
Leroy Jenkins over there.
so. And fun fact, Nick Holden was not a reference to Expanse. It is actually a reference to the show White Collar on USA. It is the fake name that Neil Caffrey gives whenever he is like conning someone. And I was like, Nick Holden, that's a fun little name. And then at that point I had even seen The Expanse and I never made that connection.
Oh, no.
And then I picked it and then I was rewatching it like the next season that it aired at one point and I was like, oh, that's the exact same name and it's a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
But whatever.
No, it's great.
My Nick Holden's better.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's amazing.
I agree. All right.
All right, do we have audience question or should I pull from the?
And you can ask as many as you want.
Okay, so these are from our wonderful patrons. Patrons?
Patreon donors.
If anyone is interested
They'll
in
pack? They'll pull them. They'll pack?
They'll pack some, we'll go. If you're interested in becoming a Starship Tempest patron, you go to patreon.com/Starship Tempest. We have some amazing tiers and things that we send and give out and stuff. Okay, this one is like not necessarily related to the show, but is an interesting question. This is from Katie Utke. Thank you, Katie. What is your favorite celestial body in our local solar system and why?
Great question.
Great question. Go
I
ahead.
already have an answer. It's not
Hit me.
necessarily my favorite body, but it is by far
Hey.
my favorite name. And it is the name that I tried to push when we were first developing Starship Tempest. We were trying to figure out what our ship name was going to be. We ended up on Tempest. But I pushed, if you guys remember, for Enceladus, because I just
Yeah.
love the name of the moon, Enceladus.
And we
But-
said people are going to say the Starship Enceladus.
Yeah.
Enceladus.
And also, it was Captain Maddox having to say, I'm Captain Rajan Maddox with the Federation Starship Enceladus. It's just a lot
of things.
It's a lot to say.
It's a mouthful.
That's
To be true.
that's a mouthful.
So I was voted out, and it was the right decision. But man, do I love that name! I just think it's
Enceladus
awesome
is the
sounding.
moon
It's a
of-
moon of now you're
Jupiter?
man.
Saturn?
Jupiter.
Jupiter. Yeah, I love it. So that's my answer.
Oh, that's your answer. Okay. I mean, my answer is the moon. But because I'm a witchy woo-woo person, and the moon means a lot to me. And
Witchy woo woo.
yeah, that's it's a
Is that a
phrase.
thing?
It
Okay.
is a thing.
I hadn't heard
And
it.
yeah, and so the moon means a lot to me, and like I will always stop and stare at a full moon, always, and yeah, I don't know, that's my favorite.
Johnny, what do you call a half moon?
A half moon? A blood moon?
No, that's,
Taco.
Taco moon.
Taco moon.
So I'm gonna like it's less fun, but I'm going to say Earth because of all of this that happened. So
No,
yeah,
I love this.
I'm an engineer in real life, and multiple times when I was going through engineering school, we had all the electives, and I regularly took alternative energy, green engineering type of stuff. So environmentalist and engineer, yeah, very much just this floating rock of spaceship that we actually are all on.
Yeah.
Living spaceship.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
amazing thing that we are, so I have to choose Earth.
Good answer.
You're
Love
such
it.
a hopeless romantic inside a cynic's body.
It's-
Right? Yeah.
That's really
Well,
true.
Aw.
Can
What's
I
the-
ask a witchy woo question, kind of?
Hit me.
So sometimes when we do character work, we use tarot for inspiration,
Oh,
especially when we're
cool.
talking about
That's awesome.
journeys and where we are on our journeys.
Oh, cool.
If your character was a tarot card, what tarot card would they be?
Ooh.
We're Dragon Age in it.
Yeah, okay.
All things.
So the question was, if our characters were a tarot card, which tarot card would they be? Wow. So I'm just learning more about the full tarot deck and like major arcana and all of that stuff. So I tend to be a like daily oracle card person. But I would say what I've learned so far, I think Dr. Teal would be the sun. Everything is like
Yeah.
the most hopeful, the most shining, the most like, I can help, I can fix this, I can, and maybe that's most doctors is like the optimism, right? And so, yeah, maybe that. And, Eo is totally the fool, so in many ways. In many ways not. Yeah. Yeah, I think the sun. I like that. I like that a lot.
Good question.
Good question.
I think, ironically, Nick Holden would also be the sun.
Yeah.
One of his values is we are the greater good. The idea of the intelligence background and doing those things was, sometimes dirty work has to be done. But at his core, he's very much a Federation is a beacon of good, which I think is the
Yeah.
thing that we all like and believe. And so it is very tied to that same sort of optimism, like you said.
That's great.
Oh, and I think Maddox.
Feel free to answer.
Sorry, yeah, I just thought of this. I think Maddox would be the 5 of Cups because he's got the 5.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I just read all this stuff. You're so welcome. I didn't even know what you signed up for. The 5 of Cups. So it's this person sitting on the ground, and there are 3 spilled cups in front of them, but there are 2 full cups on a shelf behind them, and it's all about this character like focusing on what's spilled instead of what's full and still has potential in the background. So sometimes in some parts of Maddox's journey, I feel like he is trying so hard to like fix these spilled cups, and then he has to remember about the full ones. He has to balance what is already spilled that he can't fix anymore, he can't change anymore, versus what he still has that is good to keep working on the
Interesting.
ship.
Yeah.
Right?
I can see that.
Yeah.
Is that the Rider Waite? Are you using the Rider Waite?
No, I used, what is the book I just got? I don't remember, but I'll show you later. Yeah.
I think this is Tara's way to say, get your stuff together, Captain.
I'm in. But,
That's
yeah,
such a sun thing to say.
it is a sun thing to say. I'll tell you later. All right, a new question from Len Eode on our patron Discord. What is everyone's favorite ship class and why? A classic question,
Yeah.
if I do say so myself. You
You
have a favorite.
I do have a favorite.
He's a ships guy.
I have several. There's no just favorite and second favorite. There are many subtle levels. If I had to pick one, it would be the Constitution class refit. That being said, that's a boring answer. Everybody says that. So I honestly have always loved, from the minute I first saw it on screen in yesterday's Enterprise in TNG, the Ambassador class. I think it is such a beautiful lineage. An example of lineage between ships, because if you look at the Excelsior and you look at the Galaxy, if they had a baby, it'd be an ambassador class.
Aren't we an ambassador?
That's the thing, yeah, it all ties back, yeah.
See
And
how we
so
brought it all around.
when
That was
Brian,
nice.
so it's the ambassador class has always been one of my favorites. I think it's a far better looking ship than the Galaxy class. It's like I just love the exact circular saucer, but I do love the Galaxy nacelles, which is what the ambassador has. I love that there's a little bit of like almost like heat sink ridging in the front of it, which has part of the Excelsior design element into it. And I've always loved it. And when Brian said, "All right, we're going to be playing in the Lost Era, and it's going to be we're going to be flying an Ambassador class," I was like, "Yes, this is awesome!"
For those that don't know, the Lost Era is the time frame between sort of Kirk and Picard.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of official canon media that takes place in that era. So
Right. Yeah.
we had a
Like, we
big
could
playground
play
to
stuff,
like play with canon if we wanted to type of stuff. So
Totally. Do you have a favorite ship?
I do. I found, because we've talked about this a couple times on various talks and whatnot, and I find that like the ship to look at when it's in space, everybody sort of concentrates on the beauty shop, and yeah, the refit is gorgeous. The Ambassador class is also nice. The Galaxy class is the one I grew up with, so I touched that. But I found myself sort of looking on the inside of the ships. We spend more time inside the ships than we do outside the ships anyway.
Yeah.
And sort of, I found myself gravitating towards the two that I didn't realize until we were talking about this some other day on our Discord. We were chit-chatting about this. Was the two that I gravitate the most towards, particularly because of the interiors, are the ones that feel the most realistic to me, which is the NX-01
Oh.
and the Galaxy class. Because the NX-01, if you watch Enterprise, like whatever you may feel about that ship, when you look at the interiors of it, it looks the most like sort of a naval ship. It looks like a submarine, you would think,
Oh,
in space.
interesting.
And things are, like there are monitors, bolted to the wall, as opposed to all integrated
Yeah.
technology. And there are chairs that can be moved, and like the cabins are small and
Small,
weirdly
yes.
shaped because they have to fit it in this space.
Yeah, that's
Um,
interesting.
and
You're
so
such an engineer.
Yeah, and so it feels like a much more realistic one. And then the complete opposite side of the spectrum, the Enterprise D I love because the joke is that it feels like a cruise ship.
Yeah.
But the idea is that the Federation is about exploration, right? Like it's supposed to be, we are this group of people. We keep weapons on there because we have to defend yourself. But the entire goal is we're going to meet new civilizations. We're going to meet people and explore and just find out knowledge as we progress. You wouldn't make it look like a warship when you're doing
Right.
that, right? Like you would make it comfortable. The Enterprise D, we debate whether they should have families on the Enterprise or not, but they do. And so you want this place to feel comfortable. You want this place to be a place that you actually want to be. And so like the well-lit lights and the fact that there's carpet everywhere, which I'm sure would be, I mean, it's the future, I'm sure it's self-cleaning somehow. But you can meander around and there's an arboretum and like
Yeah.
the fact that it's like a cruise ship
Yeah.
in a way that it's like, yeah, because these people are going out for years at a time to just explore. It's not all hard edges or an Apple store. It's
Yeah.
the most realistic in the sense of like, it's something that I can imagine. So I think as time has progressed, I'm like, I really love the pictures of starships from the outside, but in terms of my favorite class, I have to go with either the NX-01 or the Galaxy, simply because those aspects feel true to me and feel
Yeah.
much
Fit
more.
the narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they fit in a thing that I would think exists in
That's
a way that I
amazing.
like.
I
So.
like that a lot. That's a good answer. Mine is just the Enterprise D because it was my first Star Trek.
Valid.
Never forget your
Right?
first.
Like,
Totally
never forget your first. Okay, this is a combo question
Ooh.
from Derek and Jane Monnier, who are in Budapest, and we love you.
Budapest.
Thank you for Budapest. Okay, which we were just talking about this earlier. Does the game seem too easy since you can almost always apply a focus to help your roll scores? And does Brian wish he could use more complications? Or basically, as Derek says, why don't we fail more?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Can
So-
we read one more time?
Yeah, sure. So
I'll type in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things about Star Trek Adventures I think is good for new players particularly is when you make a character in Star Trek Adventures, your characters are pretty powerful. When you think about Star Trek as a franchise, as a universe, people are competent, which I love. And
Yeah.
like they trust each other, but they also are good at the things they are good at, and they trust other people to be good at the things that they know they are good at. So when you were building a character, you put stats in. I have I'll pull up ours again. The system that it uses is you're trying to roll under a number. So when you're rolling, you're trying to get a low number rather than a high number. And when you're looking at our character sheets, like the character sheets, you're rolling, you combine your attributes and disciplines, and you add those two numbers together, and then you're trying to roll under that. So this is a side character. This is Doe, our helmswoman. so she's not even a main character, so she doesn't have as high stats as we do, but if she's trying to fly the ship somewhere, she rolls control and con, which here is 15. We're rolling d20s, which means she only has to roll under 15 to succeed. That's a success. So there's a 3/4 chance that 3 out of 4 chance that she will succeed in that roll. Your characters are powerful. If you're trying to do a thing, the difficulty is how are you going to do the thing, and then the difficulty is generally the highest is 5. So you do succeed a lot because the whole point is that you are good at your job. The times that you run into problems are when someone is trying to do something that's not their discipline, which again is tied to the idea that we need to trust the people that are doing those things to do those things.
Totally. I was just gonna say this is a different character named Cephalopodidopoulos. You're very welcome. What did you say? Control and con?
Yeah.
So
Cephalopod is also a backup pilot.
Oh, it's also a backup pilot. Well, that's not
security,
as helpful.
Fitness and security.
Okay, so fitness and security. If Cephalopodidopoulos was trying to do something that the chief security officer should be doing instead, their fitness and security is only a 9. So on a D20, they have to roll under a 9, which is much harder to succeed. So really, if we're playing correctly, we're having the right people do the right things.
Yeah.
But we end up in scenarios like on away missions and stuff where we don't have that perfect person to do that thing.
Yeah.
We also just have Orion though, who has notoriously, we've been together for 20 years and this man rolls 6s in the game of Risk like no one else alive. So yeah, we happen to.
So he just rolls very well, which is helpful for us.
I think if the question is, do we think it's too easy? And I don't. I get why somebody might think that it's less interesting if we just keep succeeding all the time. Mm-hmm. But I do like the fact that I like the fact that we have a little bit more control over the overarching direction of the story because of our ability to succeed in our choices. Because our choices are not necessarily just what the game master says, all right, A or B. Sometimes we come up to Brian like, hey, we want to do this, or this. And so we're shaping the direction that maybe even our GM hasn't anticipated. And when we roll successfully, it pushes him into a direction that he might not have gone otherwise. So I think that in and of itself is an interesting benefit of the power that we have in rolling. I'm not going to answer for Brian, but if I was to guess what his, so I guess I am going to answer for him. Does Brian wish we had more complications? We like to paint it that way when we're playing, but I don't think he's rooting against us a lot of the time. Sometimes he definitely is, but I think the majority of the time he lets us steer the ship of the story, and I think that's great. And
I'll say, especially in season 1, he was going very easy on us. We were all very new to the thing. He was very new to GMing.
He didn't want us to not have fun.
He didn't want us to walk away before we were too invested in the game.
Can we do this? No, you explode. Goodbye.
And so I think he was going very easy on us. And then as we've gotten further on, he has upped the difficulty of rolls. So before, if something was super difficult, he'd be like, it's a 3. It's like, okay. But then he tried to stop us with difficulty 5s, and we kept getting them. So now he throws them out more often than he used to. So he's upped the difficulty on that edge. He's also it was tough for him to think of complications in the moment when you're the GM and it's like, oh, you rolled a complication. How am I going to do this? So one of the things that I added in the book was a list, the page of complications. So now you can just pull that page up and go, that's the one that you have happen.
No one can assist you in the next roll or whatever.
So would you say, in terms of the question being, does it feel too easy? The challenge is provided by the collaborative storytelling, not by the element of chance.
Largely, I think that's a good way of putting that.
Yeah. More so in the early, I think.
She said for the thing.
Repeat what you said. So
you repeat.
I'm not going to be able to do that. She said more
eloquently. Do you feel like the challenge of this game is the collaborative element of storytelling versus competing against the element of chance?
We feel like the challenge of the game is the collaborative element of storytelling rather than the roll of the dice chance. And I think that's a large part of it too, because we also have competing interests as individual characters, which is super interesting. There was actually in the most recent episode that I'm editing, Brian.
Spoilers.
I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Brian dropped a surprise on us, and if we failed, some bad stuff was going to go down. And Travis was like, "Yes, this is awesome. I hope we fail." Because from the narrative side of things, putting us in that corner would be a really interesting "how do they get out of this box" sort of situation. And Travis was absolutely rooting for us to fail in that moment, and we did, and he was so happy. So,
Yeah.
so it does
Sometimes
go
it happens.
both ways.
And I really like the lesson of Star Trek that you can still do everything right and still lose.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can. The
Jean-Luc
lesson of
Picard.
Star Trek. You can still
Yeah.
do everything
It
right.
is possible to make no
and
mistakes
lose.
and still lose. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Great.
totally, yeah. We would end some episodes and Brian would text me and he would say, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sad about how that whole thing went. I don't think I want to play anymore." He's like, "No, it's going to be okay. This is why I texted you."
Yeah. Great.
Well, that's why you have your great rooms.
Hmm?
The Kobayashi Maroons.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, Jackie Windle asks, what made you turn this into an actual play podcast?
Brian.
Yeah, Brian
next
made
question.
it.
Yeah.
Next
Well, I'll tell the story since Brian's not here to tell it. But
Yeah.
Brian, our GM, had a long. He lives in California. He had a long drive to work, and the friend of his that he was driving to work with listened to, I want to say it was Adventure Zone.
Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what introduced him to this concept. And as he was listening to it, he's like, "This is fun," and like. This is like he wanted to sort of get into role-playing games a little more than he was, and he's like, I felt like Jamie, and he's like, this seems like a fun thing, and I feel like we could record this session. I have some friends that I find entertaining, and some other people might as well, so we might be able to do something like this. And then he tossed it to us, and that happened right around the time that COVID hit, and so it became this sort of lifeline of, I get to see my friends again, I get to interact in a fun way. We're gonna try it. We recorded a couple sessions that were horrendous,
Oh, so
which
bad.
the first couple times you play will always be that way. But yeah, I think that's the genesis of it, of
Yeah.
the idea of what made us want to do a podcast is we wanted to do this thing together anyway, and we're all performers in some way or another. Like Brian's the director, multiple actors, theater degrees, and so we just were like, well, if we're gonna do it, we might as well.
Yeah.
We have backgrounds in audio dramas as well, so it's like this seems to just kind of all condense into what became it. So we were like, you know,
And, like,
in for a penny, in for a pound.
Brian
So.
told us, like, you know, I think people will really love it. They'll enjoy it. They'll listen to it. And we were like, yeah, okay. And now we have over 85,000 downloads, and that still feels very strange. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
why?
This still feels very
yeah,
strange.
being on a panel still
Yeah,
feels
sitting up here with
strange.
microphones feels
It's
very odd.
awesome. There's some magic there.
We are at 10:45.
Okay, we're here till 11, yeah.
Yeah, just in case
Okay.
anybody wants to
Oh,
come in and set
okay.
up.
Okay, from James T. Quirk.
I like it.
On average, how long does Brian spend preparing each mission?
Maybe we should table that.
That is a good Brian question, and we'll have him answer that for you specifically.
On
but
the Discord.
I do know that at home, Brian has like a giant white erase board that had whiteboard. Those are the words.
It's a white erase board.
And
Oh,
white
it is.
erase, whatever. And so he has like each season kind of planned out and mapped, and then
The bones of it.
the bones of each thing, and like all these cards, and he's like he spends a whole lot of time. I
Yeah.
think he also on the other wall that he doesn't show us has one of those like cork boards with
The murder-
red
the murder
string
walls,
and
yeah.
that whole business. I think. Janelle Davis, who is one of our Patreon captains, we love you, Janelle. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Janelle.
Thank you.
What do you have planned after this campaign? Is her question.
Again, I think that's probably more of a Brian thing.
Yeah.
Well, you answered her on Thanksgiving. She was at our house on Thanksgiving.
Yes, she was. I would love to continue in the adventures of the Starship Tempest in some form or fashion. So it takes us a long time to get through our production timeline, so we're still many years away from that moment.
Yeah.
At that point, we'll, I think, be retired.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
right.
at that point we'll have so much time to do more Tempest.
And that's
Yeah.
true.
So,
That's true.
Yeah, I guess this would be to make mention of it. After this campaign, Brian has told us that the intention is to be 7 to 8 seasons long. He has sort of an overarching story arc. We've recorded into season 4 at this point, but we're releasing the back half of season 3 now. So yeah, like we officially sort of are at the, no, we're not at the midpoint yet. The midpoint is 4.5.
Yeah.
At halfway through 4th season. So he has an endpoint in mind. If we ever get a chance to look at his little storyboard, we'll figure out where we can deviate it and make it completely fail.
Yeah, we'll ruin
But at
all
the
of his
moment,
plans.
there is an overarching storyline. We are culminating to something that he has in that the plan is to be 7 or 8 seasons in, I think,
Correct.
is his goal.
Okay.
And so yeah, that'll be a couple years down the line, and so we have time to think about it. To
Yeah.
do it next. So
All right, James T. Quirk.
again,
What is the most challenging part of creating and recording your podcast? Scheduling.
Yeah.
So we all have, we all have our day jobs, our things, our life, our many children we've created. And we all have to find that time to sit and record together.
we're also in 3 different time zones.
Right, in 3
We're
time
recording,
zones,
so.
from California, Chicago, and Boston, like working through all of that. Like,
And for a while, Texas as well.
and Texas, yeah. So we're like just getting the timing down is one thing. Then finding the time for the editing process on the back half, and then like I'm the social media person, so I have to make sure that I know when we're releasing stuff. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
little inner pieces. So like some actual play podcasts are, they sit down, they hit record, they play the game, they're done, right? And we have so much more that we've tried to integrate. Hello, welcome, come on in. We have so much more that we've tried to integrate that we've made it harder for ourselves. But I think
But that's what we do.
because that's what we do. But I think it's for the best. It's for the success of the show and the project that it is. But
I think this will probably wrap it up right after this.
Sure.
But
Oh.
I think that
One more. We'll do
sure.
one more.
But for my answer, I believe it's keeping all of the past, the present, and the future timelines that we're of the show in the right order, because we just recorded season 4, and I'm editing season 3 the second last episode of season 3, but we're releasing season 3.5, the 5th mission season.
Right, yeah.
So it's just keeping all those things, and people
Right.
asking what, it's so that keeping that straight in my own head is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'd also note that like the difficulty is where you place it. So the difficulty would be different if we were just recording and hitting produce, right? Like when you watch people who do that, like the very talented people who are doing like the D&D campaigns on YouTube or
Yeah.
releasing them on podcasts, where they just sit down and have cameras and they roll and they play live,
Yeah.
and like that's a completely, like you have to prepare completely differently than that. And so like we were like, we don't want to have to do that. We weren't we weren't super confident about our game playing skills because we weren't super experienced at it, and we
Yeah.
didn't really know how we were going to manage the role playing aspect. So we were like, what's a way that we can lessen that particular element? And that is we fix it in post, because we
Yeah.
all had the ability to do some type of post editing. So like for us, the scheduling, and then just the fact that it's an actual, I mean, it blends actual play and audio drama, but in terms of the production it's an audio drama. We add music and sound effects, and like you have to edit, and so it plays like an actual play, and that's where the decision making, but it's a production the way any audio drama or radio show that you would hear is. So that's the hard part for us, I think.
Ryan was the lead sound designer on 2 different audio dramas, Our Fair City and Unwell, which are both pretty well-known shows. And when he started doing Starship Tempest, he wasn't showing as much of that because of the nature of this show being so different. So in recent seasons, he has started doing these cold open episodes, and they're so good and they sound so great, and it's just like this little piece of the world and what he so excels at with world building and sound, and like it. Then we go into our nonsense afterward, right?
Yeah.
But like that first cold open is like, holy crap!
The scene before the credits.
Yeah,
So.
and so it's we put all of those things together because we're all putting our skills, our little flavors. Yeah. I have one last
Final
question. It's a Ryan question.
Great.
Oh, good.
It is from Clevenger Was Dead, which is a Catch-22 reference from one of our Patreons that Brian was so excited about. But is Ryan still planning to work every overdramatic Shatner line from the movies into his dialogue?
Do I do that?
Apparently.
I think so. There was one of the cold opens. I did yell, "Hang on!" like Herc does in Wrath of the Pond.
You probably do it
so,
more than you realize.
The twist is
I
like
probably
he
do.
doesn't plan it; it just happens.
just
Yeah,
happens.
it's just
That's-
because of who we are as
You know,
people.
speaking fluent movie
Yeah.
quotes
So,
as one
I
tends
I mean, we
to
go
do.
fire all the time.
So, Clevenger, I will say that it is absolutely unintentional if I do it, so I can guarantee I'm going to continue doing it.
Yeah, that's
Sounds about right.
absolutely true.
All
Do we
right.
have any other questions from the audience out there?
About Starship Tempest, or
What program do you use? I don't.
Editing program.
So we have slightly the way our production pipeline goes is Travis does the initial editing, just to sort of clean up the audio, and you use.
I use DaVinci Resolve. I use that because we also, in addition to this, we do filmmaking stuff too on occasion, and DaVinci Resolve is both audio and visual editor. Also, I'm not doing super complicated audio stuff, so mine is in Resolve. I use the sort of like auto clean tools, the voice isolation tool and stuff to clean out background noise, and then I just trim out ums and coughs and whatnot. And then it goes to Ryan.
And then I'm an Adobe guy, so I use Adobe Audition for the vast majority of my editing. So,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. So thank you for the question.
Cool, yeah.
Anything
Anybody else?
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
I'll also we use we all record separately. Some of us use Audition
yeah.
to record. I use Audacity, which is a free recording program.
That's a
So
good
that's
point.
just another thing to mention. Like if you're trying to record it, you can record on something like Zoom, but it's not the greatest of audio quality. So generally,
backup audio.
Yeah, we use
it's
that as
good
our backup because we get together online, we record our missions on Zoom, and I'll hit save to computer, and then there have been multiple times where somebody's mic or computer is crapped out and they lost their audio for that recording, but we have our backup audio tracks that are automatically
Saved us,
saved on
yeah.
Zoom.
Up here we have, so we did trivia yesterday, but our QR codes are on the bottom of this if anybody would like to scan those. We have some pens, Starship Tempest pens if you would like to have one. We have plenty. If you want to look at the character sheets or anything like that, we have lots of things up here you can come and see and check out, talk to us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
watching on YouTube over there.
Sign us off the traditional way.
As always, stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you out
Out there.
there. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.